You're listening to the Radius Church podcast, recorded live each Sunday in North Hollywood, California.
Hey, good morning. This week at the dinner table, my youngest daughter got really excited to share with us something that she learned in science, and some of you know this or you learned this when you were younger, and it's the way that the eye takes in information. She was telling us that she learned how the eye takes in the information of the world around us, and it delivers it to the brain upside down. But the brain is able to translate that information and turn it right side up so that we can actually move through our world. And I remember learning that when I was a kid and how mind-blowing that was. But then I also remembered hearing about this experiment that some of you might have heard about before. A guy named Dr. George Stratton performed a series of experiments. He was a psychologist who specialized in the field of perception, how you perceive the world around you. And he developed these glasses that you could put on, and it would keep your world upside down, which makes me nauseous just thinking about it. And he invited people to participate in this study, to put on the glasses and wear them for 8 weeks straight. All right, and people signed up for this. And, they reported at the beginning what you would expect. It was like immobilizing. You can't even really move around the room at all because the sky is on the floor and you pour your coffee up. That's the way it would feel. But then, and they've performed different versions of this experiment throughout the last few decades, but most people who participate in some form of this experiment report the same thing, and that is that over time you start to kind of adapt to it. And if you keep the glasses on after a few weeks, you start to be able to move around the room and not, bump into furniture. You are able, a lot of them say you could read and write even though you see everything upside down. Some of them say they could even ride a bike seeing the world upside down. I hope nobody tried to drive a car thinking that they could do it with seeing the world upside down. But that's remarkable, and I think it's a testament to how powerful we are and our brains are, particularly at adapting to changes in our world. And I use that as a setup for the importance of the series that we're in, because I wonder if there are ways that we have seen the world, and some of us are used to seeing it our whole lives this way, that are actually upside down. They're actually backwards. But everybody that you run with sees the world the same upside down way. And maybe the people that you were raised with saw the world the same upside down way. And you've been so immersed in this upside down way of seeing and moving through the world for so long that you've adapted to it like we all can, and you call it normal. And it takes some sort of a cataclysmic event to cause you to reconsider if maybe the way that you see things is actually a little bit backwards or inside out or upside down. It's kind of like that moment when you're doing karaoke with a bunch of people and somebody gets up to sing a song that you thought you knew, and then the words get splashed across the screen, and I never knew that those were the lyrics to that song. For most of my life, I was pretty sure that Toto blessed the rains down in Africa because he was so in love. And I thought, that's love. To actually take time to bless the rains down in Africa. I don't even know what that means, but man, that just sounds like love. Not until recently did I find out that he loves even more. He would actually miss those rains. He would miss them altogether. I don't know if you've ever seen the rains in Africa, but that's given up a lot, to miss the rains down in Africa. I saw the world upside down, and I thought it was normal. Thank you, I appreciate that. Last week we kicked off a brand new series that we're calling MODGNIK. And if you weren't here last week, it's okay. There's not really much catching up to do if this is your first time with us. This is a great time to be with us. You're not going to feel like you missed out on much. It's not some word in another language. MODGNIK, if you were to read that backwards, you would actually come up with a word that Jesus used to describe a completely upside down way of seeing the world, an upside down way of living your life. And the word he used for that was the kingdom. Now, if he was to teach it to us today for the first time, I don't know that he would use the same metaphor because we don't live in a kingdom. So it doesn't really make sense to us the same way it would have his first audience. When he first shared these concepts, they lived in a kingdom. They knew how kingdoms work. They knew how they were structured. They knew how, that kingdoms have a king, and that determines the way of life that you get to enjoy or experience or even suffer under. The quality of that king or the vision of that king determines so much of your life. And Jesus used that schema to say, there is a way that life looks when God is in charge. When God is in charge of your relationships, it's going to look this way. When God is in charge of your finances, he's in charge of your hopes, he's in charge of your dreams. When God is in charge of things even as intimate and as precious to you as your body, this is what life could look like. And it's very upside down. I know there's a normal way that you are used to seeing the world and moving through the world, but life as God knows it, even at first seems upside down to us. Jesus would go so far as to say it's actually the very best way to live. And that's a bold claim. Even though it seems upside down at first, backwards at first, this is the best way to live. I know that it seems strange, but if you get used to it, if you acclimate to it, you'll find that life actually gets better. Now, if you're not sure if this is the kind of content that's helpful for you right now or the series is going to be helpful for where you sit, let me give you the profile of somebody who stands to get a lot out of this series, and you can decide for yourself if you fit into one of these profiles. First, somebody who stands to get a lot out of this series is somebody who would tend to say, listen, maybe even subconsciously, I've combined what it means to follow Jesus with some version of the American dream, or maybe some version of karma. Because if I'm honest, I just think that if I pony up enough cash, or if I do the right routine, or if I'm moral enough, if I'm dedicated enough, then maybe I should get some good stuff out of it. And it has left you extremely disappointed, as that way of life has left so many people before you disappointed, because you have done good things and you've done the right things, and yet there are people who seem to be succeeding in ways you thought your life should be rewarded already for. And you're wondering, have I just been duped? Have I been manipulated? Or am I just not one of the lucky ones that God loves or that God likes? He's not going to give me good things even though I'm doing good things. If that's what it feels like for you today, then this series could not have come at a better time for your life. This is crucial for you. There's another profile of somebody who stands to get a lot out of this series, and that's somebody who's really not sure if they are a Christian or maybe what it means to be a Christian. You know, it's really easy to figure out what it means to be a Kenyan. You know, it's easy to figure out what it means to be a screenwriter. We know what you do. You know, it's easy to know what it means if you say you are a grandmother. We know what has taken place in order to give you that title. But a Christian, what does that mean? You know, maybe there was a time in your life when you would have called yourself a Christian, but right now you're not so sure. You would say, I don't know about that label, but I know that I'm a spiritual person. It's just when the spiritual things start to get organized and institutionalized, I get a little nervous. So I'm not sure if I'm a Christian. You know, or maybe you would say that at one point you thought you were a Christian, but then you look at other Christians and they don't seem to have the same doubts that you have, or they read the Bible differently than you do, or they were baptized differently than you were, and you're like, I'm not so sure if that's what it means to be a Christian if I am one of those. Or maybe you're just not sure if you're the right brand of Christian. You know, you spend enough time talking to people or spend some time online, and you realize that there are people really precious about the brand of Christian they are, and they will lead you to believe that if you're not their brand of Christian, you have no business calling yourself a Christian. So which brand are you? You know, there's lots to choose from. You know, if you're Baptist or Methodist or Nazarene or non-denominational or Reformed or neo-Reformed or neonatal or business casual or Jesus fluid or vegan, I don't know. What brand of Christian qualifies to call themselves a Christian? And then, of course, there's another kind of person here, and I know you're here, who would say, never, ever, ever would I call myself a Christian. I never have, or maybe I once did, but I never will again. I never want to be associated with that, because when you hear the word Christian, a very clear definition comes up for you. It's something like this. To be a Christian means that you're judgmental, homophobic, probably racist moralists who think they are the only ones going to heaven and secretly relish the fact that everyone else is going to hell. If that's what it means to be a Christian, I'm with you. Let's stop calling ourselves that at least. So if any of those profiles apply to you, you stand to get a lot out of this series. This series, I think, for you is right on time. I think this is going to be encouraging for some of us. It's probably going to raise a few eyebrows when you realize the fact that Jesus actually never invited a single person to be a Christian. Jesus never used the word. He didn't use the Greek or Aramaic derivation from which we get our word Christian. He never used it. The first time that word ever showed up, it was actually an insult. It was a religious slur, and it meant little Christ. And that was not a compliment when people were first hurling it at people who were following Jesus. But Jesus never called us to be Christians. Jesus never called us to be part of a little 501c3. No, instead, Jesus invited every single person of every tribe, every tongue, every nation into a way of life called the kingdom. And it's a completely different way, upside down, of seeing the world and moving through it. And since it's upside down, I guarantee that there's going to be a moment throughout this series, or a moment maybe even today for some of us, that will surprise every single person in this room. Because it's so upside down, I guarantee that there's going to be some moments where someone is going to say, whoa, if that's what it means to follow Jesus, I am so encouraged, because that's not what I thought it was. There are going to be some moments during this series where you're going to say, whoa, if that's what it means to follow Jesus, that is so freeing, because that doesn't mean I have to maintain what I thought I had to maintain or keep up what I thought I had to keep up. There's going to be moments in this series for some people, and there's some of you specifically that I know I'm praying for who experience this moment. Maybe even today for some of us who will experience a moment for the first time of deep peace, because you have been trying so hard to get life right. And as hard as you're working and as smart as you are, if you're honest and you put on a brave face, and we're proud of you for that, we all have to do that from time to time. But if you're really honest, right now you feel incredibly discouraged and maybe anxious, maybe scared. And maybe you would use this word to describe how it feels for you right now. You just feel lost. And I guarantee there's going to be a moment for you during this series, maybe even today, where that way of living will finally be over. So if you fall into one of those profiles, I think you stand to get a whole lot out of this series. Here's how I want to start today. I want to share with you another metaphor, another illustration I think that'll help us see one quality of what Jesus described as the best way to live. There are hunters in some regions of the world who have this brilliant tactic when they're hunting a certain species of monkey. And maybe you've seen this before, but what a hunter will do is they'll get a coconut and they'll cut a hole in the coconut and they empty out all the coconut water, and then they place it in the middle of a place where the certain species of monkey tends to habitate, and then they'll hide, and then they'll wait. And then the certain species of monkey will sniff out, I missed a key step. Not only do they put a hole in it, but they put a piece of banana inside of it. That's a key piece. So then the monkey will sniff out the banana, they'll go over to the coconut, they'll reach inside to grab that piece of coconut, but because of the size of their balled fist, they cannot get their hand out of the coconut. And now they have this luggage to carry around with them. It slows them down. They cannot climb, and the hunters do what hunters will do. Because that monkey is experiencing at the same time the exhilaration of getting the one thing in that moment it thought it was living for. That's to survive. It's getting sustenance. For the monkey, that's all it's trying to do in that moment. And the panic of knowing that it can't function the way it's meant to function. And for the monkey, because of how their brains are developed, they can't process how to get themselves out of that predicament. So they live with this tension of having the thing that they want most within reach and yet feeling so trapped, and it spells their doom. Now, if you and I are watching this on Nat Geo, we, as our more enlightened, evolved brains, would be like, just let go of the banana, you stupid monkey. But go easy on the monkey. Guys, go easier on monkeys. That's my political platform this year. Go easier on monkeys. Because we do the same thing. It's why all of us are going to watch at least the first 2 weeks of American Idol. We are going to see people who cannot let go of the banana. And they've been surrounded by people who have enabled them their whole lives. Like, no, that banana is yours. You hang on to that banana. And then they audition for mean people. And the mean people tell them, like, I'm so glad you never let go of that banana because now millions of people can laugh at you. I'm sorry, if there's one of those contestants here, let go of the banana. Because here's what surviving monkeys will tell you. If you would just let go of that one piece of the banana, you would be free you could have so many bananas. There are so many other bananas if you would just let go of that one banana. Listen, if your obsession and my obsession was the subject of an international television sensation like American Idol, I think we would be the subject of a lot of laughter too. Right? The one thing that you cannot let go of, the thing that is holding you back and holding you down, I think we might look like a monkey that can't let go of a banana too. You know, maybe for you it's that just need to be liked by a group of people that you don't even like. Let go of that stupid banana. For some of us, parents, it's like my child has to perform in a certain way or behave in a certain way because I've just decided that tells me something about my own value and success. You know, for some of you, it's a certain name in a certain place or an achievement, or maybe it's a dollar amount and some zeros, and you're like, once I attained that, then finally I'm living, but you can't let go of that banana. Or maybe if you're like me, at least me in a past season, it's this obsession that I once had about how I looked. And it still haunts me from time to time, but I needed to be more thin than I was. And I had some number in my mind that needed to show up on that stupid scale. And I could not let go of that thing, while at the same time I knew it was spelling my doom. And that's why I developed anorexia nervosa. Just let go of that banana. And so the question I have for us that might springboard our conversation today is, what are you holding on to that's holding you back? What's slowing you down that you just can't bring yourself to put down? What is that area in your life where if we were to ask people who are close to you, they would say to us like, man, I just wish you would stop fixating on that. I wish she would stop fixating on that. I wish he would give up control of that. I wish that she could release that because it is eating them alive. They are the shell of the person they once were or could be because they just cannot give up seeking more and more and more of that. What is it? More control? Is it more authority? Is it more dollars? What is it? Is it a physical destination that you're looking for? Is it more attention from the people that you've decided to give that authority to in your life? Because all of us from time to time are tempted to long for just a little more, a little more, a little more. And when we have it within our reach, I think sometimes we are trapped into killing ourselves, holding ourselves back, putting ourselves in harm's way because we cannot imagine not having more. But even though it seems upside down at first, the best way to live is coming to the realization that more is never enough. And Jesus knew it. If you read Jesus' life or some of his teachings, what you're going to see spread out throughout his teaching is that Jesus is the master of the pivot. There's these moments where he would be teaching, he's like on a tear, and he's teaching these like incredibly powerful concepts, and you can imagine he's got everybody in the palm of his hand, edge of their seats, and then someone will interrupt his flow. This happened to Jesus frequently. And he would pivot. He never seemed to be caught off guard, it would seem. And he would pivot and pay attention to this interruption, this person who nobody else was paying attention to. And all of a sudden he gave an example to people of something that they needed to think about in their own lives. Or sometimes people would interrupt him and they thought that whatever they had on their minds or question they had must be more important than whatever Jesus is teaching. And they would interrupt him. He would take those moments to make an example out of that person. That's the person you don't want to be in the Jesus story, where he would humble that person and everybody else listening would feel smarter. You know, Jesus was so good at that, of leveraging those moments. And that's one of the moments that I want to bring us to today, to begin expanding the idea that more is not going to deliver what we hope it will. That we can actually let go and feel more free and feel more alive. There's this moment where Jesus in Luke's biography in the 12th chapter is teaching powerful concepts, and then this guy blurts out of nowhere in chapter 12, verse 13, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Has zero to do with what Jesus was talking about, but I suppose that's where we're going now. And some people were probably grateful that he did, because it would have been on a lot of people's minds. What I should give you is, in terms of background, is that at the time, in a heavily patriarchal culture, and this isn't from the Bible or anything, this is just the way the world was at the time, when a father figure died, the inheritance would go to the oldest son, if there was one. And usually 2/3 would go to the oldest son. If there was a next youngest son, the next youngest son would get 1/3. So 2/3 to the oldest son, and again, if this is the way it was in the family, 1/3 would go to the next younger son. And the responsibility of those sons was not to just take all that money and run, but to care for the family, to keep continuing to care for the family with that estate or that inheritance. The person asking this question is likely the younger brother, who's already getting a portion of the inheritance, but he wants more. He thinks he needs more. Jesus replied like this: "Man, who appointed me a judge?" Go back to the other slide there. "Man, who appointed me a judge?" Which is probably not how Jesus said it, it's just how I like to read it. "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Like, man, I am not a lawyer, so what makes you think I can help you? But he's going to leverage that moment to teach everybody about something even more important than inheritance. So then he said to him, "Watch out, everybody," he's talking to all of us, "be on your guard against all kinds of greed." So this isn't just about money. All kinds of, I need this thing, or I can't get living. Life does not consist in an abundance of, you fill in the blank. If I only had enough of this, then finally I'm alive. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. So as he often did then, he wants to give them a way that this could show up in ordinary life. So he tells them a parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. Just think of an amount that seems exciting to you. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. There's not a bank big enough for all the zeros and fat stacks I have. So then he said, I added that part, that's not in there. So then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. Surplus is an important word because it's way beyond what he needs. This is his extra. So instead of doing something else with it, investing it elsewhere, he's like, I'm just going to store it and put my name on it, and then I can sit back, and this is what he thinks it will feel like when he's at that moment. Then I'll say to myself, you have plenty. That's an important word. Plenty of grain laid up for many years. So now, finally, take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. Plenty is a powerful word because some of us think that it's a mathematical number. But plenty is actually whatever number or whatever amount you give to the thing at which point you feel you will finally find peace. I have plenty. I have enough attention. I have enough friends. I've accomplished enough achievements. Finally, my marriage looks enough like whatever your vision is. Finally, my kids are behaving enough like whatever it is. Finally, I've received enough authority. Finally, I have enough, and now I can finally calm down. I can finally take life easy. I don't feel like I'll be comparing myself to other people anymore. I don't feel like I'll be running the race anymore. I'll feel like I'm not killing myself anymore. I will finally have all the bananas I want. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool. Gee, God, all right. This very night, your life will be demanded from you, something that could be said to any of us at any moment. Happy Sunday. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? And if the guy's honest, he'd be like, I don't care. I haven't cared to this point. Why should I care now? Yeah, maybe I've given a little bit because it helps my brand. But you can tell what I do with my surplus is I make sure I enjoy the fact that I have surplus. I love checking in on my surplus. I love defining myself by how much extra I've attained, how much margin I've accomplished, how many achievements I've racked up, how many trophies I have. I finally know who I am, and I can take life easy and eat, drink, and be merry. Then Jesus lands this part of the teaching by saying, this is how it's going to be for whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God, which begs the question, what does that mean? We'll come to that in just a second. Let me clear up something that people often misunderstand when they come across this teaching. Wait, Jesus, are you saying that God is going to kill me if I make a lot of money? And the rest of you who did not laugh are like, is that what this means? Nope. Never, ever, ever do you hear Jesus saying, like, don't be successful, don't work hard, don't earn a paycheck, don't save, none of that stuff. If you can make the fat stacks, make the fat stacks. All right? If that's what God really thinks, the parable would have gone, there was a rich man who had an abundant harvest and God struck him dead. That's not what Jesus said. What Jesus was saying is, I want to save you from the delusion of thinking that life doesn't get better than what you get. And some of us still fall for that delusion every single day. Don't be a monkey. By thinking if I have enough, if I get more of the thing that I've placed my value or my authority or my sense of security in, what you're doing is putting yourself into a trap. You're putting yourself in harm's way. And even if you survive on this planet breathing for 80 years, at the end of it all, there'll still be a big question mark hanging over your life, haunting you, wondering if you have ever been truly alive. It's death. And it's that tragic moment that some people experience when they get that diagnosis. And they revisit the way they've spent their life and they think, did it really matter? Did I spend my life and my attention and I place my value in and my hopes and dreams in something that truly matters? It's that moment that some of us are going to experience when we send our kids off to college, or in my case, maybe the circus. And that moment when they leave the nest, and some of us will think, were all those nights away, achieving my dream and climbing my ladder, was all of that really worth it? Jesus is trying to save us from that delusion You're not playing Monopoly. You know, no matter how many properties you get, how many hotels you put on those properties, how much paper you get, at the end of it all, it gets put back in the box. Jesus wants us to find a better way to live. There's a study done recently that asked people who are making $30,000 a year what would be enough for them. And those people said, on the whole, on average, they said, well, making about $100,000 a year. Same study, they asked people who are making about $100,000 a year, how much would be enough for you? And they said, well, I probably need to make about $500,000 a year. That's quite a leap there. The lesson is don't make more than $100,000 a year because then your dreams just go nuts. I was actually talking to somebody who's making about $500,000 a year just a little bit ago, and we were talking about another entrepreneur, and he said, the guy I was talking to said, that guy's making good money. I said, what's good money to you? Because $500,000 per annum, I mean, that is gooder than a lot of money I've made. That seems good. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. And that might seem like a lot or a little to you. But I said, what's good money to you? And he said, about $800,000 a year would be good money. I think you get the point. Actually, no, I don't think we get the point. I think we get that illustration because it might seem a little detached from your experience. Maybe money's not the thing for you. This is not a money talk at all. But there is something that you have some of, or you've had a taste of, or you've had some experience or seen an example of, and you think that if I just have a certain level of that or amount of that, then finally that'll be good. I'll be good. That'll be enough. The average American child owns 238 toys and plays with 12 of them a day. And then parents give them a screen and they play with one of them a day and they never stop for the rest of their lives. Oh, I got too close to the bone right there. I don't know what it is for you. You're a tech girl, you're like a car guy, I don't know, maybe it's not stuff for you. That seems like low-hanging fruit. I think you're smarter than that, and maybe you're trying to navigate life from deeper values than that, but still, man, there's a certain square footage that would be meaningful for you, or a certain zip code that you live in that would be meaningful for you. And finally, it's more than just about having the space that you want. It's about the image that you would portray, the tribe that you'd be able to keep up with. Jesus is saying, man, there's a better way to live. Some of you, it's about being included with the right group of people. This is a delusion I used to fall into before I was mature enough to tell people I don't like going to your parties. You know what I'm talking about? Where you're like, I just like to be invited. And then you slow down a little bit, and you're like, but I don't really like parties at all. Like, unless the party is one of those where I can get in the kitchen and talk to one person for 7 hours, I don't want to go to that party. But I want to be invited to it. Amen. Yeah. And Jesus is saying there's a better way to live. You can let go of the banana. He goes on to say to his disciples, now these are his closest followers, people hopefully paying the most attention to him. Therefore, I tell you, you don't have to worry. Do not worry about your life. What will you eat? Or about your body? What will I wear? For life is more than food, and the body more than clothes. He goes on to say after that, and do not set your heart. Don't put all your passion, all your value, don't set your identity on what you're going to eat or drink. And of course, those are just illustrations of the things you can consume, the things you can retain, the things you can acquire. Don't worry about it. For the pagan world, and that's not an insult, he just means people don't think that there's a God, and so logically they don't think there's some, force that's paying attention to them or has, wants the best for them. The pagan world runs after all those things. Of course you do. And your Father knows that you need them. There is a God who knows what you need, even better than you know what you need. So seek his kingdom, seek his way of life. And these things, the things that you need most, those are going to be given to you as well. Then he wraps up the whole teaching by saying, do not be afraid, little flock. So much kindness here. For your Father has been pleased to give you not just that banana you're trying to hang on to, but the whole kingdom, a whole way of life. So how do I begin to apply this? He goes on to say, well, if money's your thing or possessions is your thing, sell your possessions, give it to the poor. Does that threaten you? That might tell you what the banana is you're hanging on to. Provide purses for yourselves. In other words, acquire things for yourselves that are not going to wear out. An algorithm won't take from you. It won't go out of fashion. Somebody else can't beat you. It's not a competition. Store up a treasure in heaven that will never fail, where no thief can take it away from you. No thief comes near and no moth destroys. And a concept we return to all the time here as a community: for where your treasure is, where your highest value is, your heart is going to go there also. So wherever you invest your time, wherever you invest your resources, wherever you invest your talents, your heart's going to follow that. And you're going to attach your identity to that, and you're going to attach your sense of satisfaction to that. So make sure you're careful, you're selective about where you invest your life. Okay to make the fat stacks, but don't for a second believe that that's all there is to living. Because you could gain the whole world and lose your soul. I can't believe how often I fall for this trick. There's something I've set my sights on, and until I get it, it takes and takes and takes and takes for me. You know what I'm talking about? Whatever that thing is in your life, you just have to keep giving to it. So what makes us think that when we finally have it in our hands, that it's going to turn around and start giving to us? There are those things, those pursuits in life, those values that we've placed in life, that in chasing them, we actually are giving ourselves a death sentence, hoping that one day we would be lucky enough to be shackled by it. I don't know what it is for you. What Jesus tells us is people who know the best way to live, can see the world right side up, even though at first it seems like upside down, they become the best people at letting go. It doesn't mean they never have, but it means they are more equipped to let go. It doesn't mean they never acquire, it just means they've opened up their hands, knowing that they cannot control it. Ordinary tells you that more is better, more is security, more is happiness. Jesus is telling us you don't have to live this way, because what more really is, more, whatever more is for you, more is just a distraction. More is a critic, because you don't have enough, so you're not good enough. More is a trap. More is death. And we don't have to live that way. The M of MODGNIK for us, and the first quality of the best way to live, might seem upside down at first, but the best lives know that the best way to live is living knowing that more is ultimately less. There's a more in your life that just pays off less and less and less the more and more of it you get. What is it for you? When we first got this church started, there was a small group of us, and we had no money and very few people, and so as is customary, at the very beginning, nobody's getting a paycheck for sure. And for those of you who've got the funds together to make your film or record your record, for those of you who are entrepreneurs, you know exactly what that life looks like. You do have to give up so much to get something you believe in off the ground. Many of you courageous souls, that's why you came out to an expensive city and put yourself at risk so that you could achieve something or discover something or create something. It's really no different in many ways when you start a church. But so many of us, we just felt like, God, you're calling us into this, and so we didn't want to do it foolishly. I have a family, and we'd been disciplined, and we'd put some savings away. And, we rented this house in a great little neighborhood, and we were paying like half what we should have been paying for this place. And I thought, we're going to be fine. We'll be fine for a few months, and then eventually things will kind of get sustainable, and it'll be fine. And then a few months into starting this church, I get a knock at the door, and there's my landlord standing in front of me, and with tears in his eyes, he's like, our family's hit some hard times, and we need to move back into this house, so I need your family to move out of here. And of course, it's his house, And I just thought in that moment, I'll be honest, I'm a pastor, I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those stories. I'm like, guys, it was so surprising, but then God gave us a mansion down the street for free. That's not what happened. I had to move my family into a smaller space in a less desirable neighborhood, because as if that matters. And our housing costs more than doubled overnight, almost. And you put on a brave face for your kids, and this is how God's providing, and we're doing the best we can with what we have, and I'm trusting Him with my future. But if you're like me, there's always some area of your life that you thought you had control over, and as long as that one thing is okay, then you believe that God loves you and He's got your best interest in mind. And then if that thing gets threatened or gets disrupted, it calls into question everything you thought about yourself and your faith and your purpose and your future. And I got to admit, guys, as a pastor, I was at that moment. And there's one thing I would try to as I was influencing my family and sharing with my kids, but as Katie and I were getting honest, or I would wake up early in the morning, I would go pray. I got to tell you, in the early stages of Radius, there were these mornings where I'd just be fetal, crying on the floor and just screaming like, God, what have you, did I not hear you right? Was this what it was supposed to be? I thought at some point there would be some indication that this is the right way to go, and what have I done? What have I done to my family? And one of the things that God taught me through that time, of many powerful things he taught me, what he showed me was, Joseph, one of the things that you are addicted to is control. And the way that shows up oftentimes is in a martyr complex, that I feel like I can save every situation. And so I stick it out longer than I need to. Or it shows up maybe in my sense of security that I have for my family. I want to be a provider, and I want to be a good dad, and I want to be a good husband. And anytime that's threatened, or the margins start to get a bit thin, then I start to wonder if I'm a valuable human being. I'm just being vulnerable with you guys. And what God was showing me in that season is, Joseph, stop trying to control the things that you cannot. You need to give these things to me. Not that I don't want you to have them, and I don't want you to make wise decisions. That's not what that was. But there's really nothing in your life, including the breath in your lungs, that's within your control. You need to hand over the entire thing to the hand of a Father who cannot help but give and provide. And he'll provide everything that you most deeply need. Most of us, we are used to living our lives fixating on our circumstances and then glancing at God from time to time. I need an answer. I need some good luck. What Jesus is calling us into is a better way of life that glances at the circumstances of life and fixates our eyes on a Savior who cannot help but give, where we will find real freedom, real hope, real value, where we'll find real life, better than ordinary. It's going to seem so upside down. It's so easy to say, so impossible to live. So I don't say this flippantly. I say this as someone who has to practice this every single day, that there's something still that I am tempted to hang on to that's ultimately holding me down, holding me back. So what is it that you've put all of your value in that you just cannot imagine putting down? I want to take you here at the end of the message through a little practice that I think might help to identify what that thing is as you learn to become a person who can let go over the next few weeks together. I'm going to give us some silence here just so that you can process and identify something that you're hoping gives you more, but is ultimately just taking away. It's making you not present with your relationships. It's making you feel anxious. It's making you feel scared. It's giving you worry. It's giving you arrogance. What is that thing that you're holding on to that maybe you need to learn to open up your hands around? And if you're like me, you need some, I need to close my eyes to focus. So why don't you close your eyes if you want to. And I'll just give you a few moments here of silence just to process through that. I invite you to talk to God about that. He wants to reveal that to you by his Spirit. What is that thing that you're hanging on to? I'll prompt you with a couple suggestions, then I'm going to shut up, give you some space, then we're going to sing a song to remind us that God wants to provide what you most deeply need. Maybe it's that need to be included more by people you don't even admire. Maybe what you need to let go of is the presence that you're trying to create online. I don't know, that's, I think, something that's trapping a lot of us. And we think we're not living until the world knows we matter. Maybe for you it's an addiction. There's something that you'll spend anything to get more of. And it gave you a jolt when it started, but it's paying off less and less. And you don't need less of it, you need none of it. Maybe you need to identify that and tell somebody today and get some help, get free. Maybe it's wishing your child was more blank or your spouse was more blank, and then finally I'll be okay. Finally I'll have hope. Finally I'll be happy. Maybe for you it is some sort of an achievement or a title or a dollar amount, I don't know. And then you have patched that word plenty on it. When I have plenty of that, then I'll be alive. What is it for you? I want to give you some moments to process through that. And maybe even pray that God would give you the courage to let go so that he can provide you something you want even more.
Thank you for listening. For more information, follow us on social media at Radius Church LA and visit us on the web at radius.la.